Hello there, welcome back to the Oda Shogunate. When we left off, we were about to attack Korea, and I've just let my CB be created so we can attack them now. One of the problems is we like the Ming too much, so let's insult them to bring down the cost. Actually, it's just too high. I don't think I've been improving relationships, but maybe they've been improving relationships with us. Our noble's married, apparently. I don't recall doing that. But either way, we're going to lose a bit of stability, but I'm not particularly bothered. We can always just slap the peasantry to gain some. Before we actually start the conflict, though, let's gather up all of our ships so we're actually in a position to engage them. We're going to do what we did the first time round and just try and fight the Ming navally until they're willing to peace out. They peaced out really fast last time, faster than I expected them to. So we'll see if something similar doesn't happen here. Alrighty, let's begin. So we're using a threatening rival CB this time, which allows us to take a lot more land. So the goal is really to take as much of Korea as we can in this war. For example, I'd love to take a large portion of southern Korea. It's going to be costly though. We'll have to see how it actually looks because we'll need to occupy land. Luckily we have our two guys here. They're of course not in the war. We could call them in if we need their support. We're unlikely to though. I might call them in just to have them do some sieging for me. But for now, we'll just call up our boys. I'm actually thinking of using my navy to really just go around and try and catch the Ming one. Let's actually head over to China right now. We can see at least they've got some, they're raising levies here. Their real navy must be somewhere around. If we could just catch them and destroy them, it wouldn't really achieve much. It would make me feel good though. Sadly, we haven't been able to find the Ming navy. They could really be anywhere though. Ming has colonized a bit. For example, they have land up in Manchuria, they have some land in the Philippines, so their navy really could be anywhere. Although actually, I guess we just wandered into some of them. Looks like one ship. Not a big deal. It would be nice if we could catch them, but I suppose it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Same for the Korean Navy though. Could we catch them? It looks like the Korean Navy's docked here. Is this their whole navy? It doesn't like it. There's only 3 galleys and they have 19. So they must have ships elsewhere as well. Aha! We managed to catch, I think, the Korean Navy here. Looks like we only managed to kill 3 of their ships though. We captured some though, and that's great. We'd definitely like to capture as many of their ships as we can, because it means I don't have to make them if we just steal them from other people. We'll see how long the Ming... Ooh, are we about to catch a navy? We just caught a single ship here. We're defeating them, but they're not dying. Are they hiding out here maybe? Doesn't like it. One thing we could do is scatter our navy round and blockade their coasts. I'm not sure how much that really achieves anything. It does cause a little bit of war score, obviously, but I doubt it's enough, and I doubt I have a large enough navy to blockade the entire Ming coast. Maybe if we fully killed their navy so that I could do it without worry, that would work. Ooh, we just caught the Ming Navy, I think, and I think this was the actual navy. Yes, looks like it had their real ships in. It doesn't look like we managed to kill many, though. Their galleys managed to escape unscathed. We took 2 ships and killed 1. At the very least, every bit of damage we do to their ships stops them, ferrying over and attacking us. We can see the Ming are just taking attrition, I guess, from occupying all of our land up in Siberia, which I suppose is beneficial to us. Killing Ming soldiers without actually fighting them feels quite pleasant. Somehow it seems that we've destroyed the entire Ming Navy. There is this problem with navies where it doesn't actually show you how many ships die in the battles. It just says a small amount die when in reality the entire navy is destroyed, which isn't very helpful obviously. So I assume we actually destroyed their entire navy, but it just didn't tell me. So the only one left with a navy is the Koreans. Well, they're all massed here though. It doesn't look like they're going to leave. It is about their whole navy though. There's just 7 ships missing. We may just try and keep them trapped here. After all, if they're trapped here, there's not a lot they can really do. We do need to keep an eye on attrition though. We don't really want our ships to take too much damage or worse, be destroyed. But if the Koreans are the only one with a navy, I'm not really concerned. It'd be nice if they did ferry the armies over to Japan so we could just destroy them. Let's detach our damaged ships from our navy, although it does look like it's most of them. A lot of them have taken just a tick of damage though. So if we wait for that to repair, there's only 57 that are damaged. I guess let's just wait actually. It looks like the Great Pestilence has began, but it's began in my territory, specifically this tiny island, or 2 islands here. I suppose we're the ones responsible for the pestilence this time around. That does feel strange though. Does that mean no one has colonized America on the other side? I would have expected the pestilence to be spawned in the European colonies. How strange. Oh well, I suppose we'll use this as a chance to get our communalism up to 100%. We were very close to, only on 97%, but we might as well go all the way to 100. The Ming's willingness to continue the war is starting to fade. We'll have to see how long it takes them to decide that they'd rather wipe peace and be done with the conflict. We've killed a lot of them. We've killed 100k Ming soldiers, but they've all just died to attrition from invading Siberia. Not quite what I had in mind, but I guess if it works, right? Ah, there we go. The Ming have had enough. They've actually managed to make quite a lot of ships. I've spent most of my time just racing around catching their small ships and killing as many as I can. They've lost around 400,000 men just to attrition from invading Siberia. So no wonder they kind of want to just be done with the whole conflict. So we'll let them out. Goodbye, Ming. Now, Korea. Now that you're all alone, we can target you. Let's begin gathering our army. Since we have control of those southern Korean territories, we can just land our whole military directly in those territories. And the Koreans shouldn't actually be able to get involved because they won't have mill access through our subjects, obviously. It's pretty cheap to do. I don't like doing it because it feels like cheating, essentially. But we'll land our whole military within our vassals' nations and then just walk from our borders into Korea proper. We might even call the guys up if I feel like we need to. They could help us with sieging, I guess. They don't have many men. Close to 10,000 between the two of them. But let's begin moving across. One of the nice things about having our vassals here is they will keep us supplied with food. So let's look. The Koreans have around 80,000 men. Let's split our armies up. We could just split them up into around 80,000 each to make sure that we can properly fight them if we encounter them. Korea has a lot of forts though, so we're going to need to do a lot of sieging. Let's first see about sieging Jinju. The ideal would be that the Korean army tries to engage us and we're able to destroy them. Remember, this is a superiority war, so we can get around 75 war score just from winning battles. If we could do that, then just take a few bits of territory, we should be able to capitulate the Koreans. Finally, we've taken this fort, only took around 500 days. We haven't seen hide nor hair of the Koreans so far. I'm actually thinking I'm going to call these two in, our vassals here, if only because it means the Koreans may try to occupy them. We'd really like the Korean army to come out of hiding so we can destroy them, or at the very least our vassals can move around and they potentially could find the Korean army for us. Let's not do anything for a moment. Let's see if the Koreans do try to make an attack. Ooh, yeah, there they are. There's 15 of them there, 15,000. They have 80,000 overall though, so it's entirely possible. Well, it's not entirely possible. It's very likely the rest of their army is elsewhere. Let's see about grabbing that 15,000 first of all though. There we go, throw them away. That'll give us quite a bit of war score from winning those battles. We do have to be a little wary of the Korean winters. We'll take a lot of attrition. There's not much we can really do to avoid it though, except of course, not entering their territory during winter. I guess what we could do is let our vassals do the sieging. That way they'll be the ones to take attrition, and if the Koreans do jump on them, we can then jump on them. It's too bad more of these forts aren't by the coast, or I would just use my navy to help siege it down. Alas, things can't always go your way. Ooh, there's 20,000 of the Koreans. Let's jump on them. Luckily there's... Ooh, actually they jumped on us up here. That's fine though, it looks like we outnumber them. I'm surprised they attacked us. Especially since we were on a hill? No, perhaps not. No, it is a hill, I was correct in my hill assumption. Let's see about killing all of these guys then. If we can fully destroy the Korean army, then we can safely and securely just blanket siege them. Pretty big fight here. It looks like this was almost the entire Korean army. It might have actually been, looking at it. There's 45,000 of them left, and we can see here there's about 45,000 men. So that looks like it was the entire Korean army just throwing themselves at us. That's pretty great. We didn't fully annihilate them, but we definitely shaved their numbers down quite a lot. Looking at the Korean forts, they do have quite a few of just stockades, which are nice. They do have quite a few of castles as well though, which will take a lot longer to siege down. I'd like to try and prioritize the stockades just because they'll be easier to siege and they shouldn't take as long. I'm going to use part of my army to go around and siege things, and I'll have the rest wait in reserve for the moment. We still need to fully destroy the Korean army before I'll be comfortable going on a real offensive. Ooh, the Koreans are back. I'm a little surprised, or maybe I shouldn't say I'm a little surprised, because if I had lost a battle I would have immediately come back and tried to take another win. They're all kind of based here though, they are spread out a bit. Let's try and jump them. We'll bring everyone together. We don't need to worry about the siege really, we can always just re-siege whenever we need to. I would much prefer killing their armies first as discussed, from the extra war score we're going to get from winning battles. So we'll jump on them. It looks like they're going to actually reinforce. We'll see how this goes. They might be able to overpower us if they reinforce directly into the battle. I don't think so, though. It looks like we're going to do enough casualties before those reinforcements even get here. We might actually rout them before the reinforcements get here. That would be perfect, because then we could just fight the reinforcements in a separate battle. No, it doesn't look like it, though. They're going to arrive in time. Their arrival isn't going to have a big impact, though. They'll just get slaughtered as well by the looks of things. They do have more regulars than us. That's something to remember. And that could definitely tip things in their favour, but it doesn't look like it's going to. And there we go, threw them back. Took a little more casualties than I thought we would. Most of that was actually due to the reinforcing army. I guess they were made of sterner stuff. So they retreated. Let's see if they come back again. If they do come back again, we'll just defeat them again, obviously. Every battle we win, of course, increases our war score, so I'm totally fine just fighting battles and not necessarily sieging. Let's just sit back a little bit and see if they do come back. Yep, looks like they have come back, almost in the same formation as before as well. They really want to, A, take this mountain here, and B, liberate this fort. Not sure I'm surprised. Let's get everyone in position, and then I think we'll jump on them again. We'll go straight into them. They'll, of course, try and reinforce. We'll also reinforce. We'll, of course, defeat them. Still taking quite a few casualties, but we're kind of just wearing them down at this point. Let's actually position an army on that mountain and see if they actually jump our soldiers there. That probably would have been a smarter thing to do, since they seem to really want to occupy it. If we could have them throw themselves at us, that would be nice. Doesn't look like they're going to throw themselves onto the mountain. That's too bad. They are taking attrition on that fort, though, due to the winter. Maybe we should wait for the attrition to end before we jump on them ourselves. Let them get thinned out a little bit. I don't really want to take the attrition myself, although I suppose I wouldn't because it's my fort, at least for the moment. I'm not sure where the rest of their army is. This is only 9,000 of them. Ah, there they are. Are they going to... Yeah, they're going to come and support. We throw them back again. We must be getting close to the max amount of war score we can get from battles. After that, we'll have to think about sieging. And here they are again. This is their whole army now. They're only down to 14,000. We'll just jump on them. That should push our war score up to... the maximum we can take from battles. No, we're still a little bit low. So one more battle. To be fair, it looks like their army only has one more battle left in them. And then the matter should be relatively settled. We'll just need to go around and siege things. Yep, here they are again. Hope surely for the final time. Not quite, looks like there's still 2,000 left, but I think we've reached... Oh, we're so close to the maximum. One more time then. One more time. And here we go, one more time, surely. Yes, we're at the maximum now and they only have 900 men. Let's begin sieging stuff down. Hypothetically, we don't need to take the forts. We could do some naval landings just to occupy their cities. That might give us enough war score for them to capitulate. We could also spread our navy around and blanket blockade them. That would also give us some war score. At the very minimum, I'd like to avoid sieging down the locations with castles in. Ooh, and there goes our shogun. Our previous shogun was very good. It's a pity he's died. He had nearly max stats, and he's been replaced by a not-so-max stats heir, but I'm sure he'll do his best. Do you look at that? Ming is actually attacking Korea right now. How could they? How dare they? That changes things a little bit. It does. We're very close to getting Korea to capitulate, but at the same time, if Ming comes in and starts occupying land we want to take, that would be very inconvenient. Let's see, does taking this city... We're very close. We're very close. I know I've already said that, but I'm going to say it again. Let's see if we can just slip in and occupy a few of these non-forted locations to push us over the line to 100%. Yep, there we go, we're at 100%. We just need them to capitulate now. Hopefully they'll do that soon before the Ming... Oh, yep, there we go, perfect. Perfect. Of course, it didn't give us the land that Ming is actually occupying up there. So with this in mind, what should we do? Well, first of all, let's actually destroy the Korean Navy because they popped out of their port. There we go. All right, so we of course want to kind of cut off Ming so they can't take their territory, but I don't think we're going to be able to really do that. We would need to occupy essentially the entire Korean coastal line if we wanted to stop Ming taking any territory. There's also a chance Ming is going to vassalize them. That would be really inconvenient, but not really something we could stop. What if we just try and take the coasts of Korea? Unfortunately, Ming has come over and occupied this location here, which makes things inconvenient. Yeah, we definitely wouldn't be able to just take their coasts. It'll be just too expensive. All right, let's operate off the assumption the Ming is probably just going to take a bunch of territory from them in the north and will in turn take land in the south, I think. It is concerning though. There, I think we'll settle for this. We could go for something more coastally, but I'm not really concerned about the Koreans having a large coast and potential navy. we'll just bite into their inland territory. I do feel like the Ming may have caught us out of position a bit though. They were cleverer than I thought they would be. We'll see what they end up taking from Korea. It may end up not mattering, or they may end up taking so little that it's not really a concern. Worst case scenario would definitely be a vassalization though. So what to do with this land? Well, we've almost finished coring all of our Japanese land, so we could think about coring this territory as well. We could just accept Korean culture because we're not really accepting many cultures outside of our own ones. In fact, we're not accepting anyone who isn't Japanese. It wouldn't be too hard for us to accept Korean culture. It would mean that we have a foothold on the land that the Ming could occupy, which is the thing I'm not really looking forward to. So instead, we're just going to hand it out to our two vassals. They can continue to manage the territory in the region on our behalf, for the foreseeable future at least. We will now once again do the arduous task of splitting up our navies so that they can spread control, aka maritime presence. Our colonies in the Americas are still growing. Soon enough, they'll be completed. We've colonized a lot of Siberia. I'm not sure we want Siberia, but we're getting it. We're still trying to get our trade offices around the coast of Indochina. They're really not making it easy. In fact, let me give a gift to these guys. That should make them willing for me to build trade offices in their territory. Yep, we'll build them. We'll build them around. I did try to go through Brunei, but I wasn't able to get a high enough relationship because a lot of the people there hate us for some reason. Hopefully this trade office here gives us access to the wider India. If not, we'll start improving relationships with these guys here so we can kind of limp down to, say, Bengal. We still want those institutions after all. While Ming is currently at war with Korea, it doesn't look like they're going to defend other members of the Middle Kingdom. So what I think we're going to do, we're going to grab this tiny island. I just noticed, so I've just used a parliamentary CB for us to declare war. The tiny island really shouldn't be able to do anything. In fact, we probably don't even need to use our real army. We could probably just use our regulars, all 1,000 of them. Although there is a fort on the island, we may need a little bit of help to siege that. Ooh, and looks like they hired 8,000 mercenaries just as we got here. That changes things a little. Impressive, most impressive. We'll of course then hire a bunch of our own people. And by hire I mean conscript. Where are those mercenaries? We'd like to not land on top of them, so let's land on the little location next to the capital. It looks like they might be hiring, yeah, it looks like they're hiring loads. Are they just gonna spam mercenaries? They might actually run out of money if they do too many. We don't know what their treasury's like though. We definitely can't just jump on the mercenaries with our levy army. I guess we're going to have to call up more people. We could always hire our own mercenaries, but, you know, I'd like to avoid doing so. If we really wanted to, what we could do is just sit back and wait a few years for their mercenaries to expire. That would probably be the wisest thing to do, but I'm pretty impatient. So we're just going to jump on them. Yep, the ridiculous amount of mercenaries they have was nowhere near enough to stop us. We can now just peacefully siege down their capital. Let's disband most of the people we brought up to take part in the conflict, as the conflict is now essentially over. There we go, they've surrendered. We'll just full annex the island. We'll keep the island for ourselves since, you know, it's not on the mainland, so we don't really need to worry about it being occupied by the Ming. Speaking of which, they still haven't ended their war with Korea. My eyes are kind of glued to the conflict. I want to know what the Ming are going to do, as it will shape our strategy going forward. The idea would be they just take a bunch of Korean land. Not too much, though, obviously. To be fair, it's not like we could take much, so I doubt they can take much either. They are using the parliamentary CB, I believe. Yes. But they are going for their capital. They've lost ridiculous sums of soldiers, despite the Koreans barely having an army because they have not recovered from fighting us. That just shows you how annoying it is to siege down the Korean forts, and the attrition you take from doing so. We have finally gained access to India. Now we can ask for fleet basing rights from Indian nations, which will cause us to gain a little bit of institutions spread from them. There was a nation here I was really friendly with that I was planning to use, but I think they've been murdered as part of the never-ending Indian wars, sadly, so we'll need to try and make friends with other people. We don't have to be too friendly, just enough that they'll be willing to sell us fleet basing rights. Once we have fleet basing rights, the AI never seems to cancel them, so it will just be permanent unless we come into conflict with those Indian nations or they get killed, both of which are of course possible. Okay, the Ming have made peace. It doesn't look like they took much. They took a bit of land here, I think. I think this was Korean, yes, we can see because it's uncored, and they took a bit of land here. That's fine. They haven't actually entered into Korea proper, which is here. Does that mean Korea is no longer part of the Middle Kingdom? It looks like it. That means in future wars, we won't need to worry about the Ming at all, which is excellent. It means we can just cut straight into them without having to waste time. And would you look at that? We're finally getting a bit of institution spread. Only a 0.1 at the moment, which is then being amplified up to 0.3. One other thing we can do is offer them fleet basing rights of us. That will also provide us with a little bit of institution spread. There we go, we're now getting 0.2. This is the max we can get, I think, from us giving someone fleet basing rights and from them giving us fleet basing rights. We'll now have a little trickle of the institutions. We'll also make sure to build everything we can that will increase the spread. I think we've already done so. Just double check. There might be something I've missed. Doesn't like it though. We of course want to go beyond India though and eventually make our way to Europe so we can get the institutions directly. To help with that, we're going to start stealing maps from the Indians so we can gain access to Arabia, and then we'll likely steal maps from those countries so we can get vision of Europe. We've just finished our first colony here in Australia, and as you can see, Australasia is not part of the Pacific Islands colonial region like I thought it was, but we're not able to release a colony here. I've been thinking about it. I've also finished some colonies here in North America, but I haven't been able to release them as colonies either. And I think it's because of the fact that we're here in East Asia, right? Our capital is in Osaka, and North America borders a subcontinent that we ourselves border, and I think that's the restriction. So because we border East Asia down here, and that borders Australasia, we can't release colonies there. And because we border North Asia, and that borders North America, we can't release colonies there. So my idea is to move our capital a bit. If we move our capital down into Southeast Asia, we should be able to release colonies in North America because it will be beyond our capital by 2 regions. Although the Pacific Islands might cause a problem, I think. Do they border North America? Yes, they do. That's inconvenient then. I guess we'd have to move our capital all the way to South Asia to be able to release land in North America, which is a bit out there, obviously. But when it comes to Australasia, we could move our capital up to North Asia. They don't border the Pacific Islands, so hypothetically, if I'm correct, if we move our capital up to North Asia, we could release colonies in Australasia. I'm not sure though. I've actually reloaded a save here because moving up to North Asia didn't work, and I did a little bit more research, and I think it's because of the continent. Because our capital is in the continent of Asia, and the continent of Asia, of course, borders the continent of America and Oceanica, we can't form colonies in either because of that. At least that's how I'm reading it. It doesn't sound sensible or logical, but that seems to be how it is. I am thinking, though, if we moved our capitals to, say, Oceania, would we then be able to release land in America? Because America doesn't border Oceania. It just borders the Pacific, which is not in Oceania. So we could say move our capital to Oceania, release land in North America, and then move our capital to America and release land in Oceania. That's at least how I'm thinking it is. So I guess it means we can't release any colonies anywhere. I guess maybe if we moved our capital to Africa, then we might be able to release land as colonies in America. We need to see Africa though. It's going to be quite a while before we can get vision on them. Let's actually start stealing a map. Let's steal a map of Oman, I guess. Now we can begin working on Spy Network and steal more vision of land in that direction. I think we're going to have to shelve the idea of colonies, at least for the moment, which is a little annoying because all of this colonization, of course, gives me land, which is at very low control because of how far away it is. And there's not much I can really do with it. So it just brings down my average control. But well, sometimes that's how things have to go for science. At least we know now, and as they say, knowing is half the battle. I've been thinking about my inevitable conflict with Ming, and last time they lost a lot of soldiers from coming and sieging down all of these northern provinces in Siberia, so I'm thinking I'm just going to throw down a bunch of forts up here. Not for any real purpose, just to drain the Ming manpower when they eventually come up and try and siege them all. You know, Ming is actually a hegemony. Should we try and fight a war against Ming now? Well, not right now, obviously, but soonish. We could get the Destroy Hegemony CB on them, which would require us to occupy their capital, but we'd be able to take vast amounts of land with that CB, and if we could just completely disintegrate their levies by having them all die to attrition, then I definitely think there's a workable idea here. We definitely want to actually have regulars before that point though, so we are gonna wait until professionalism and other institutions start to show up within our lands. Once they do show up, we'll probably embrace them as fast as possible. We have almost finished coring all of Japan now. We've just got a few places in Hokkaido to be cored. and then we can finally say with certainty that we have complete control of Japan. Definitely a lot of work, but once it's done, it's done. Our truce expires with Korea in 3 years as well. I'm thinking partially to do with the idea of just thinning out Ming's numbers. If we took the northern parts of Korea and just built a fort in, say, every single location, we could use that to, again, wear down Ming's numbers when the time eventually comes. It could be I'm getting a tad ahead of myself, though. Our truce has expired with Korea. Unfortunately, Korea has become so weak that we can no longer get the destroy rival CB on them. I'm not sure I agree with that idea. They are stronger than us economically, having 1,800 tax base. We only have 1,000 tax base currently. So as I said, I'm not sure I agree with the idea that they can't reoppose us. I suppose militarily they're not doing too well, only 50,000 levies. So we're going to use this parliament to get a CB on them. It's not going to be the best, obviously, because it's the parliamentary CB. We'll see about taking... You know what I said about Ming, right? Ming might attack them again. It might be a good idea to start trying to take the northern territories from them. At the same time, it might be smarter to secure their capital, which is a very wealthy location, and split their country in two. It's a hard choice to make. I think we're going to go for their capital. Let's declare war immediately. Although, it looks like they've got 98 galleys. That's quite a lot. We've made quite a few more galleys of our own. We're currently sitting on 72, but that's not quite 98. Their galleys are the exact same one as ours as well. Let's quickly make a bunch more galleys, is what I would say, but we don't quite have the money. I think we're going to attack anyway, though. Let's gather up all of our ships, make sure we're actually paying maintenance for them, and let's declare war. Them having a larger navy might be good, because it might encourage them to actually navally invade us. Of course, we're not bringing in our two Korean nations. They might be able to do a lot of damage to Korea on their own, because they have a lot of levies now. At least this southern one does. They've got 15,000. Let's see if we can't catch some of the Korean navies as they roam around. I doubt they'll have their entire navy in one big force, and if not, we should have ample opportunities to catch them out. We've managed to transport our entire army over to Korea. Despite the Korean navy being quite large, they didn't seem to want to engage us. They spent most of their time just sitting off the coast of Osaka. But we're here now. As discussed, we vastly outnumber the Koreans. It's just a matter of getting them, and they could well be anywhere. And unfortunately, because of our CB, fighting battles doesn't matter as much. We really just need to occupy their capital. So let's begin kind of just marching. Ooh, there's some actually. Looks like they have hired mercenaries too. We managed to beat them though. Not the best place to fight though, up on a mountain. Let's continue what we were doing and marching north, laying siege to their forts. As I mentioned, I may call up the nations here once things have started to go in our direction. Accidentally walked into an enemy army there though, which isn't great. Alright, we've killed most of the Korean army. There's just 4,000 left. Even though they hired mercenaries, they didn't really make much of a difference. So let's call in our two vassals. They can help us siege down the territory, as there are still quite a lot of forts, because that's what Koreans like to do. The Koreans really aren't making this one easy for us. I wonder if this is why Ming had so much problem with them. You know, Ming didn't sweep them. Was it because they were just calling up hundreds of thousands of mercenaries? We've killed 250k so far. To be fair, we've lost nearly 200k ourselves, but those aren't mercenaries. But they just keep calling them up in an infinite swarm, seemingly. They're definitely wearing us down. I wish I'd set my war goal for something that wasn't their capital, or I probably would have capitulated them by now. But I was, of course, feeling cocky when I probably shouldn't have been. And sadly, we don't get any more war score for defeating these mercenaries, even if we defeat them over and over again, because we're at the limit for winning battles. And yet the mercenaries just keep coming. Alright, we're going to make peace. Due to the nature of the war, we can't really take much anyway, so I think we'll just take these two provinces. That will cut off these southern territories, which will reduce their control, and hopefully make them cheaper to take in a future war. I think for these lands, we're going to make a new fiefdom. We don't want our fiefdoms to get too big, after all, that they become hard to integrate. It really is too bad that we can't use the destroy enemy CB on Korea anymore, or we'd be able to take a lot more territory. We'll try not to worry about it though. Speaking of worrying about it, we're getting close to getting the Renaissance. I can almost taste it. Ah, there's the Renaissance. We'll embrace it immediately. There's really no reason to delay. Let's quickly start researching the Renaissance texts. Curtailing the nobility is one I'm really looking forward to. Just allow us to get more money out of those nobles. We've got another government reform from the Renaissance now. I'm thinking, should we grab asymmetrical warfare tactics? If our goal is to wear down the Ming, increasing the amount of attrition they take in our lands would definitely help with that. We could also go for something like the garrison system to increase the size of our garrisons, making it harder for them to siege them. Maybe we should grab colonial expansion though for the increase to our colonial range. I am feeling like it was kind of a waste for me to invest in colonizing. colonizing. Think of all the ducats, the hundreds of thousands of ducats I've invested in colonizing that I could have invested at home. It's one of the reasons why I don't really think colonizing is worth it in the current version of the game. Even if I'd been able to form colonial nations, it still would have been a big investment, which I think is usually just better invested at home. But I think we're going to go for asymmetrical warfare. It just speaks to me. All right, I think we're ready to attack the Ming, and I use ready very loosely, obviously. We have our takedown hegemony CB. This is going to be more of a test than anything else. I want to see whether it will work having all of these forts up here, and whether Ming will just trundle up here with his vast levy armies and all die. It doesn't sound like it would work, but that's why we're going to test it and see if it does. At the very least, we vastly outnumber them navally, so I guess we could carry out maybe a naval invasion of Taiwan, I guess. And if they do end up taking massive casualties in the north, we could just navally invade and try and occupy their capital, which would give us taking war score for the war goal. Chances are we'll just fight a bit and then make a white peace because things won't be going our way, or there won't be any real benefit from the war. On a plus side, we have found Europe. We just need to get vision on the Europeans and continue to get our trade offices heading in the direction. We're quite deep into India now. The hope is that we can come out the other side and then nip across to Arabia and then likely up through the Mamluks to Italy, which is where most of the institutions spawn. And then we'll ask someone there to give us fleet basing rights, and we'll give them fleet basing rights in return, and we should spend the rest of the game having every institution head into our capital. Speaking of which, we have both banking and the Renaissance. We're still waiting a bit on professionalism though. It's almost enough that we could accept it. Once that's done, we can transition to having an actual landed army with manpower and all those cool things. We can even get access to light ships and heavy ships. Oh boy. But for now, I think we'll leave it here. I really do regret the amount of money I've invested in colonizing. We could have just conquered all of China with the amount of money I've wasted on it. Economically, it's still our biggest cost. I probably shouldn't be doing so many colonies at this point, but I really just wanted to colonize as much of the world as possible, as fast as possible. But since I can't really benefit from my colonies, I guess I'll start cutting down on them. I'd at very least like to fully colonize Australia though, and we'll continue going down the coast of America. At the very least, it'd be nice to colonize California, even if I can't release a colony there. I am still thinking about, moving my capital to Africa just for a moment so I can release colonies in Australia and the Americas. If it does work that way, the way I'm considering it to work. We'll just need to colonize somewhere in Africa, get a full core on it, and then we can move there. But for now, as I said, I'll thank you for watching. If you yourself plan to play Japan, it's probably better to get a mod that allows you to set up colonial nations in neighbouring continents, or you just don't bother colonizing at all. Otherwise, you're going to suffer like I have. Our vast colonial network is definitely bringing down our crown power and average control. Luckily, it doesn't have too much of an impact on us though. But either way, I'll thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.